Well, I'm happy to tell you this one is going to be shorter than a lot of the other ones. In this screencast, we'll talk about methods of reducing urban runoff. So, a runoff is simply water that doesn't infiltrate, it goes across the ground and then into streams and rivers and lakes. And so, urban areas are known to doing a lot of that. So, in rural or undeveloped areas, basically, there's a lot of vegetation. And as we've said all year long, vegetation slows down the rate at which rain reaches the ground, and it encourages it, therefore, to infiltrate the ground, percolate down through the soil, and become groundwater. And that reduces the rate at which runoff is produced. So there's a lot less runoff in a rural or wildland area than there would be in a city, because in urban areas, instead, you have a great deal of impervious surface. You have concrete sidewalks, asphalt roads. You have just basically a large amounts of surfaces that do not allow for infiltration into the groundwater. So instead, it goes down storm drains and gets dumped into rivers. Now, urban runoff carries with it, when we say urban, okay, we got to talk, we're also talking about urban sprawl. Okay, and urban sprawl then implies people having yards. So what happens is when people have yards, they tend to use fertilizers, they tend to use pesticides, and they tend to have pets. And those pets leave feces in the yard. So when you get runoff from these areas, it carries with it a lot of high nutrient material into rivers, which leads to eutrophication. Urban runoff also carries with it motor oil. So when you look at a road, you'll see little dark spots. That's basically oil, that's lubricating oil and engine oil that drip down into the street. And it'll just sit there. It's usually not volatile. It'll just sit there day in and day out. And when it rains, it then floats to the top. It is non-polar, so it doesn't bind with the water. And it gets carried down. As you see here, you get that rainbow color. And it will go down the drains. And so it ends up introducing hydrocarbon pollution into rivers. It also tends to carry with it a lot of just garbage and trash, just eyesore type pollution, which also gets into streams. And it's just because there's just not enough opportunity for water to infiltrate. So instead, it runs off and typically goes down these gratings here. We call it storm drains. Now, where do these storm drains go? Well, they're usually not part of the standard sewer system. They're usually a separate thing that doesn't get treated at all. It's just we want to move that water away from the city so we don't have flooded streets, and just move it out to the nearest surface water area, near a stream. And so these drain to these, which drain into rivers. But the motor oil is coming into the river, the fertilizers, pet feces, the trash. It all just ends up getting dumped into the river unless we do something about it. So urban runoff does tend to cause quite a bit of pollution in stream systems. Now, how do you reduce it? Well, the problem is you've got to find a way of reducing what percentage of the land surface is covered with impervious surface. That's what it comes down to, right? So if you think about it, in a city, you got parking lots, you got roads, you got roofs and such and so on. And as I said in a previous screencast, up to 90% of a city is impervious surface. So the trick to reducing urban runoff is to reduce the percentage of the city that's covered with impervious surface. How do you do that? Well, you try to prevent urban sprawl. And because basically that just all these roofs, all these roads, all the parking lots associated with the shopping areas out here, those are all impervious surfaces. So the trick is to try your best to prevent urban sprawl from happening. Because if you can do that, then you're going to have more vegetated space where water can then infiltrate. So the trick is try to get people to stop living in single family dwellings in the outlying areas and get them to move into the urban core areas to live in apartment buildings. It's the best thing you can do, really, for the environment in terms of managing an urban population. Because also that means less commuting. If there's less commuting, there's less carbon dioxide, which is a separate issue from this. We've already addressed in a different screencast. Now, so if you have a lot of people living in a high-rise apartment like we have here in Korea, all these people are under one roof. So, like in the apartment building I live in, there's 13 floors. There's 130 families live under one roof, and the amount of roof space I would guess is probably equal to about maybe four families worth of roof space in this area here. So if you think about that, I mean, that is a great improvement in efficiency in terms of reducing the amount of impervious surface attributable to, to roof surfaces. Often they have underground parking areas. Again, that helps because that's leaving green space here. All right. So if you have more people living in cities, you have less roof space, and you also need, if these are in urban areas, then you have less commuting necessary. So there's less roads being built, and again, that's less sort of. So the trick is high density urban housing is high rise urban housing is the answer here. But in order to do that, you're still going to have to get people to work. Even if they live in the urban area, they probably don't live exactly where they work. So that means you have to have high quality transportation services. So if you have a good urban transportation service, public transportation, then that means you can have less roads and you can move people around quickly and they'll stay in the urban area and they won't try to escape to the outlying areas. The other important thing is to include green space for two reasons. One is it improves people's quality of life and makes them want to stay in that urban area. If that urban area, you can't just have a concrete jungle and expect people are going to stay there. That's a mistake people made in the past when they didn't plan cities. Nice thing about Korea is most of the cities here, like Pangyo, is planned. They said, look, you have to have these things. One of the things you have to have is green space. Now, green space makes people happy and makes them willing to live in the urban areas in these high-rise apartments uh, because they can still get out and enjoy nature. But also, it provides surfaces that are penetrable by water, so that water can infiltrate in these park areas. And then the last thing I'll say, I'll tell you this one is short, is there's been recent engineering developments, material engineering, and that is the development of water permeable paving surfaces. So there's quite a few of these out now, and the idea is that you have surfaces in which water is capable of getting, it's a road surface, let's say, or a sidewalk surface, but it's designed in a way that water can actually make it through. And so it's definitely more expensive, but it alleviates a lot of the problems associated with urban runoff. So there is a technological answer as well as an urban planning answer. Okay, so that's ways of reducing urban runoff. Thanks for watching.